Bill Cosby's two-day sentencing hearing. The comedian was convicted, you'll remember, in April on 3 counts of aggravated felony sexual assault. He faces 10 years in prison for each of the 3 counts against him, but the judge could impose a longer or shorter sentence. Some legal experts have said that they don't think the 81-year-old actor will spend any time in prison. Cosby's defense team is expected to appeal the guilty verdict, and the judge could allow him to remain on house arrest until the appeal is resolved. Now, joining me now to discuss all of this is local attorney CMichel. Good morning. Thank you for being here. He did not testify during his trial. Many have criticized him for showing no remorse. Do you think he'll take this stand in the next 2 days?
I highly doubt it. I just don't believe so. They're going to be more focused on the appeal that comes later and focusing on trying to keep him out as long as they can. So they're going to ask for an appeal bond, have him go back on house arrest, on an ankle monitor in his house as he was since his conviction.
For the last 5 months.
Exactly, and try and stretch that time out so that he doesn't actually have to serve if possible.
And I want to get to that in a minute, but before that, specifically looking at, I think that, first of all, this is Pennsylvania, it's not here, so there's some changes based on the law in terms of like a mandatory sentence. For the person at home, though, who is not a lawyer and is watching this, can you explain then this sort of range that the judge has to work with?
Oh my goodness, it's anything. That's the crazy thing. There's no mandatory sentence. There's no minimum mandatory, anything like that. So he could sentence him to probation. He could sentence him to a full 30 years, decades long. So there's full discretion for the judge to sentence him for any of those possibilities. He could serve no days in jail, like legitimately, he could serve no time in jail.
And I think that someone at home would say, what, how could that be? But the reality is that the judge does take into effect, no doubt, right, his age. He's 81. He is blind.
Yes.
You know,
health is
his
a huge
health,
thing.
correct. And then he has no priors.
No priors. They'll even look at the fact that he has philanthropy that he's done over, many years. There's a balance of all these factors. And of course, the prosecution's going to be asking for as much time as possible with the factors of the women being damaged so significantly and wanting to send a deterrent message. But then there's also this Me Too movement and wanting to show that, hey, this is something that we don't want to accept and allow other people to get away with.
And then in light of that, and there was only 1 victim in this case in which charges were brought against him and he was convicted, but you have 5 others who are testifying. How do you think that mitigation might bolster then the prosecution's argument that he needs to go to prison and it needs to be more than just a slap on the wrist?
Absolutely, and actually the prosecution wanted more than the 6. I mean,
like
there were
60 who wanted to
exactly,
testify,
and
sure.
only 6 were allowed, but I think that's a huge thing. I mean, those victim impact statements will make a difference. That's going to tug at the heartstrings. That's where the bulk of this is going to be. They're going to ask for that time for these women.
Now, when it comes to appeal, we remember here locally, and we do tend to compare sometimes, this was of course federal court, we remember Corrine Brown was allowed to stay out of jail pending kind of the appeal.
Yes.
But these are much different charges. That was kind of a white collar crime. This involves, sexual assault. Do you think that he'll stay out during appeal of prison?
It's such a toss-up with whether or not the judge is going to think, hey, he's elderly, I don't really believe he's going to pose any real harm, and allow him this chance to go ahead and appeal. Oh goodness, that's going to be the interesting thing to see what the judge is going to do with that and whether he's going to grant that appeal bond.
It'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 2 days.
Yes.
CMichel, thank you very much
Absolutely.
for being here. I do appreciate your insight. And of course, we will continue to watch what happens with Bill Cosby's sentencing hearing. Once we learn what that sentence will be, likely to happen tomorrow, we'll certainly bring it to you on air and online at News4Jax.com. Bruce?
Yeah, in fact, I just got to know we're actually going to carry the sentencing live. 1 in 3 students are bullied. Odds